Hi, and welcome to this video. Today we're diving into a deeply personal topic. Many of us carry emotional wounds from childhood that we may not even recognize. These wounds can show up in our relationships, our self-esteem, and our daily lives in ways we don't always understand. In this video, we'll explore those signs, things like fear of intimacy, perfectionism, and trust issues, and how they stem from a lack of love and emotional support growing up. But more importantly, we'll look at how you can begin healing these scars using Stoicism, an ancient philosophy designed to help us manage our emotions, build resilience, and find peace in the face of life's challenges. If you've ever struggled with emotional barriers or felt stuck in patterns that don't serve you, this video will offer both insight and practical solutions. Let's uncover these signs and use the wisdom of Stoicism to transform how they affect your life today. Now, if you are new here, please like the video and subscribe. Statistics show that only 15% of my audience is subscribed to the channel, so if this content has helped you in any way, I ask you to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Chapter 1. Difficulty trusting others. One of the most common signs that you were not loved as a child is difficulty trusting others. Trust is a fundamental aspect of any relationship, and children who are consistently cared for and nurtured develop a secure sense of trust in others. However, when love and emotional support are lacking in childhood, trust becomes a complicated and fragile concept. If your caregivers were unreliable, dismissive, or emotionally absent, you may have grown up believing that others are not trustworthy. This belief often extends into adulthood, manifesting as suspicion, fear of betrayal, or emotional withdrawal. For someone who grew up without love, trusting others can feel like an emotional risk they are unwilling to take. The fear of being hurt again often leads to self-protective behaviors, such as keeping people at a distance, assuming the worst about others, or over-analyzing their actions. These behaviors, while intended to prevent further pain, can isolate you emotionally and prevent the formation of meaningful relationships. Relationships require a certain level of vulnerability, but when trust has been eroded early in life, vulnerability becomes almost impossible. Adults with trust issues often struggle to rely on others in both personal and professional settings. They may be overly independent, avoiding reliance on friends, family, or colleagues for fear of being let down. This can create a cycle of loneliness and isolation, as the very thing they fear, emotional hurt, becomes more likely due to the barriers they've built around themselves. Stoicism offers valuable insights for those struggling with trust issues. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that what happens to us is not as important as how we react to it. In the context of trust, this means that while you cannot control how others behave, you can control how you respond to their actions. Instead of fearing betrayal or hurt, Stoicism encourages a mindset where you focus on your own actions and virtue rather than the behavior of others. To apply Stoicism to trust issues, practice the art of good discernment. This means carefully evaluating the character of those around you and placing your trust in people who have demonstrated integrity and reliability. Instead of assuming everyone will hurt you, allow yourself to make rational, well-considered judgments about others' actions. At the same time, recognize that no one is perfect, and people may disappoint you despite their best intentions. Stoic philosophy also teaches us to accept that we cannot control everything. Trusting someone does not guarantee they will never let you down, but that doesn't mean you should avoid trust altogether. Learning to accept that others are fallible, just like you, can help ease the fear that fuels your trust issues. By focusing on what is within your control, your own actions, emotions, and responses, you can approach relationships with more confidence and less anxiety. Chapter 2. Fear of Rejection and Abandonment. A deep fear of rejection and abandonment is another sign that you may have grown up without love. Children who do not receive consistent emotional support from their caregivers often develop an insecurity about their worth and lovability. When love is conditional or absent, it sends the message that rejection is always a possibility, even from those who should be the most dependable. This fear often carries into adulthood, where even stable, healthy relationships can feel precarious. Adults with a fear of rejection or abandonment may exhibit a range of behaviors. Some people become clingy and dependent, going to great lengths to avoid being left behind by their partner or friends. They might overcompensate, trying to be perfect or overly accommodating in an attempt to keep others close. On the other hand, some individuals push people away before they can be hurt, maintaining emotional distance to protect themselves from the perceived inevitability of abandonment. This fear can create a self-fulfilling prophecy. The anxiety of being rejected can drive behaviors that strain relationships, such as jealousy, possessiveness, or constant reassurance seeking, which can eventually lead to the very rejection that is feared. Even in friendships, this fear can lead to hesitancy in forming close bonds, as the risk of losing someone may feel too great to bear. Stoicism offers a profound way to approach the fear of rejection and abandonment through its teaching of memento mori, the practice of remembering that everything, including relationships, is temporary. The Stoics believed that by accepting the impermanence of life, we can better appreciate the present and reduce the anxiety that comes from fearing loss. Applying this Stoic principle means embracing the idea that rejection and abandonment are part of the natural course of life. Instead of living in constant fear of what may happen, Stoicism encourages us to live virtuously in the present, focusing on building healthy relationships without being consumed by the possibility of their end. By accepting the reality that nothing is guaranteed, you can start to release the need to control or cling to others out of fear. Additionally, Stoicism emphasizes the importance of focusing on what is within your control. You cannot control whether someone will stay in your life, but you can control how you treat them, how you respond to their actions, and how you manage your emotions. This shift in focus, from worrying about potential rejection to cultivating virtuous behavior in your relationships, helps alleviate the anxiety of abandonment and fosters emotional resilience. Chapter 3. Chronic low self-esteem. Children who grow up without love often struggle with chronic low self-esteem throughout their lives. When caregivers fail to provide consistent love, validation, and emotional support, the child learns to internalize the belief that they are not worthy of love. This sense of inadequacy becomes deeply ingrained and can persist into adulthood, manifesting as persistent self-doubt and a lack of confidence. As an adult, low self-esteem can show up in many forms. You may constantly compare yourself to others, believing that you are not as talented, attractive, or successful. You might feel uncomfortable in social situations, assuming that others are judging or disliking you. This can prevent you from taking risks, pursuing your goals, or even asserting yourself in personal and professional relationships. Chronic low self-esteem creates a barrier to living a fulfilling life because it holds you back from recognizing your worth and potential. Low self-esteem also leads to a negative internal dialogue. You might frequently criticize yourself, minimize your achievements, or focus on your perceived flaws. This negative self-talk reinforces the belief that you are not good enough, creating a cycle of low confidence and underachievement. Stoicism offers a powerful remedy for low self-esteem by shifting the focus from external validation to internal virtue. The Stoics believed that true self-worth comes not from the opinions of others or external achievements, but from living a virtuous life based on wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. Your value is not determined by what others think of you or by how successful you are in worldly terms, but by how you conduct yourself according to your principles. To build your self-esteem in a Stoic way, start by practicing self-discipline and virtue. Set small, achievable goals that align with your values and commit to them. Every time you act in accordance with your principles, whether it's being kind, courageous, or disciplined, you reinforce your sense of worth. Over time, your self-esteem will grow, not from external accomplishments, but from the satisfaction of living in harmony with your values. Stoicism also encourages you to detach from external validation. People's opinions of you are outside your control, and basing your self-worth on these external factors is a recipe for instability. Instead, focus on cultivating your inner strength and integrity. When you live virtuously and take pride in your actions, your self-esteem will no longer depend on what others think, but on your own judgment of your character. Chapter 4. Difficulty setting boundaries. Another sign of growing up without love is the difficulty in setting boundaries. Children who are not loved or respected may grow up feeling that their needs and feelings are not important. This can lead to people-pleasing behaviors where you prioritize others' needs over your own to avoid conflict, rejection, or feelings of guilt. In adulthood, this can manifest as an inability to say no, taking on too much, or allowing others to take advantage of your kindness. Adults who struggle with boundaries often find themselves feeling emotionally drained and overwhelmed. You might say yes to things you don't want to do, tolerate disrespect, or avoid asserting your needs because you fear disappointing others. This can lead to resentment, frustration, and a sense of losing control over your own life. Without clear boundaries, you become susceptible to burnout, emotional exhaustion, and feeling like others are taking advantage of you. Setting boundaries is an essential part of maintaining healthy relationships and protecting your well-being. However, for someone who wasn't taught that their needs matter, setting boundaries can feel selfish or wrong, even though it is necessary for emotional balance. Stoicism teaches the importance of temperance, and self-respect, both of which are crucial when it comes to setting boundaries. Temperance in Stoic philosophy refers to moderation and self-control. In the context of boundaries, it means knowing your limits and being able to assert them without guilt. Stoicism encourages you to act in a way that aligns with your values, which includes protecting your own well-being by setting appropriate boundaries. To begin setting boundaries, reflect on what is most important to you. Identify areas in your life where you feel overextended or where your needs are being ignored. From there, practice assertiveness through calm, rational communication. Stoicism teaches that boundaries should be set with firmness and clarity, not out of anger or frustration, but out of a desire to live in alignment with your values. Stoicism also helps you overcome the fear of how others will react to your boundaries. Remember that you cannot control others' responses, only your own actions. By focusing on what you can control, your boundaries and behavior, you reduce the anxiety that comes from worrying about how others might perceive you. Setting boundaries becomes an act of self-respect, not something to feel guilty about. Chapter 5. Emotional numbness. Emotional numbness is a common response to childhood emotional neglect. When a child does not receive love, warmth, or emotional validation from their caregivers, they may develop a coping mechanism of emotional suppression. Over time, this suppression leads to emotional numbness, where the individual struggles to identify, experience, or express emotions. The ability to feel both positive and negative emotions is diminished as the individual learns to detach from feelings to avoid further pain. As an adult, this emotional numbness can manifest as a lack of passion, joy, or connection in relationships and daily life. You may find it difficult to understand your own emotions, let alone express them to others. This disconnection from your feelings can make relationships challenging, as emotional intimacy requires the ability to share and understand one's own emotions. It may also lead to a sense of emptiness, as emotions play a crucial role in our sense of fulfillment and purpose in life. In addition, emotional numbness often leads to suppressed stress and anxiety. By not processing emotions, you may experience physical symptoms such as chronic fatigue, tension, or unexplained illnesses. Emotional suppression also inhibits personal growth, as you remain disconnected from your emotional world, which is essential for self-awareness and healing. Stoicism offers a balanced approach to managing emotions. The Stoics did not advocate for the suppression of emotions, but rather for understanding and accepting them without being ruled by them. In fact, Stoicism promotes emotional clarity, acknowledging emotions while maintaining rational control over them. To combat emotional numbness, begin by practicing emotional mindfulness. A Stoic technique where you recognize and observe your emotions without judgment. Rather than suppressing feelings, allow yourself to identify what you are feeling in the moment. The Stoics believed that emotions are natural, but they should be subject to rational examination. Ask yourself, what is the source of this feeling? Is this emotion helpful or harmful to my well-being? Another Stoic practice that can help is journaling. Writing down your emotions can help you reconnect with your inner emotional world. The act of reflecting on your day, your reactions, and your feelings in a rational, detached way can gradually help you dismantle the emotional numbness that has built up over time. By acknowledging your emotions and understanding their root causes, you allow yourself to reconnect with your feelings without being overwhelmed by them. Lastly, Stoicism teaches the importance of living in accordance with nature. This includes accepting that emotions are a natural part of human existence. By embracing this fact and practicing emotional awareness, you can begin to reconnect with your emotions in a healthy, controlled way, restoring balance to your emotional life. Chapter 6. Trust Issues. Trust issues are often a direct consequence of growing up without love or emotional support. When caregivers fail to provide a stable, loving environment, children learn to distrust those around them. Trust is built when a child knows they can rely on their caregivers to meet their emotional and physical needs. When this trust is broken or never established, the child may grow up believing that people are unreliable or even dangerous. As an adult, trust issues can manifest in various ways. You may find it hard to open up to others, fearing that they will betray or abandon you. This fear can lead to keeping people at a distance, avoiding vulnerability, or even pushing people away preemptively. On the other hand, some people with trust issues may become overly controlling, trying to manage every aspect of their relationships to avoid being hurt. In relationships, trust issues create emotional barriers, making it difficult to connect deeply with others. You may find yourself constantly doubting others' intentions, questioning their loyalty, or fearing that they will hurt you. These fears, while protective in nature, often create the very situations they seek to avoid, as relationships built on distrust tend to be fraught with conflict and instability. Stoicism provides a framework for managing trust issues by teaching that while you cannot control others' actions, you can control how you respond to them. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously said, It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This idea is key to overcoming trust issues. To rebuild trust, begin by practicing rational discernment. Trusting others does not mean being naive or blindly placing faith in everyone. Instead, carefully observe people's actions and evaluate their character. Trust those who consistently show integrity, reliability, and kindness, but remain prepared for the possibility that people may disappoint you. Stoicism teaches that everyone is fallible, and it's unrealistic to expect perfection from others. Next, work on accepting that you cannot control the behavior of others. The Stoics believed in focusing only on what is within your control. You cannot ensure that someone will never betray you, but you can choose to approach relationships with an open heart and a rational mind. By focusing on how you respond to challenges in relationships rather than trying to control others' actions, you can release much of the anxiety that comes with trust issues. Finally, trust issues often stem from a fear of vulnerability. Stoicism teaches courage in the face of fear. By embracing vulnerability, you allow yourself to experience deeper connections and emotional growth. While there is always a risk in trusting others, it is a risk worth taking if you want to experience meaningful relationships. Trust becomes an act of courage and rational judgment, grounded in your own strength and resilience. You have now reached the halfway mark of the video. I congratulate you for trying to become a better version of yourself, and I also humbly ask you to leave a comment, as it helps my channel immensely. If you do not know what to comment, just write mind over body, so I know you reached this far. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Also, I've linked some books on Stoicism that helped me become the man I am today, and will also help you achieve a Stoic mindset. Chapter 7. Fear of Criticism. Children who grow up without emotional support or love often develop a heightened sensitivity to criticism. If love and acceptance were conditional on performance or behavior in childhood, criticism can feel like a direct attack on one's worth. This fear of criticism can persist into adulthood, making individuals overly sensitive to feedback, even if it is constructive or well-meaning. Adults with a fear of criticism may experience a range of behaviors. You might find yourself avoiding any situation where you might be judged, leading to missed opportunities for growth. Alternatively, you might become defensive when criticized, viewing feedback as a personal insult rather than a chance to improve. This fear can also manifest as perfectionism, where you push yourself to unrealistic standards to avoid any possibility of being criticized. This sensitivity to criticism can limit personal and professional development. As feedback is essential for learning and improving, it can also strain relationships, as defensiveness or fear of judgment may prevent open, honest communication. Stoicism offers a powerful way to reframe criticism. The Stoics taught that we should not be overly concerned with the opinions of others, as these are beyond our control. Instead, we should focus on our own virtues and actions. Epictetus advised, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned only these.'" This response demonstrates the Stoic practice of embracing criticism as an opportunity for growth, rather than something to be feared. To address the fear of criticism, practice rational detachment. Instead of reacting emotionally to feedback, assess it calmly and rationally. Ask yourself whether the criticism is valid, and if it is, how you can use it to improve. If the criticism is unfounded, let it go, as the opinions of others do not determine your worth. Focus on what is within your control, your actions and how you handle feedback, not on others' perceptions of you. Another key Stoic principle is amor fati, or the love of fate. This teaches that you should embrace all aspects of life, including criticism, as part of your path to self-improvement. Criticism, even when uncomfortable, is a chance to refine your character. By reframing criticism as a valuable tool rather than a threat, you can approach it with gratitude and a desire to grow. Additionally, practice self-compassion through Stoicism. Understand that no one is perfect and mistakes are part of being human. Accepting your imperfections allows you to face criticism with confidence and humility. By focusing on continuous improvement rather than perfection, you can release the fear of judgment and embrace feedback as a natural part of life. Chapter 4. Chapter 8. Difficulty setting boundaries. Many people who were not loved as children struggle with setting boundaries in adulthood. If your emotional needs were dismissed or neglected growing up, you may have learned that your desires and limits are not important. This can lead to a pattern of people-pleasing, where you put others' needs ahead of your own to avoid conflict or rejection. As a result, you may find it difficult to say no, even when it's necessary for your own well-being. Adults with poor boundaries often feel overwhelmed, as they take on too many responsibilities or tolerate behaviors that are harmful to them. Without clear boundaries, you may feel resentful or frustrated, but struggle to assert yourself out of fear of losing relationships or disappointing others. Over time, this can lead to emotional burnout and a sense of being trapped in situations that do not serve you. Setting boundaries is essential for protecting your emotional health and maintaining balanced, respectful relationships. However, for someone who grew up believing their needs don't matter, boundary setting can feel uncomfortable, even selfish. Stoicism provides a practical framework for setting boundaries by emphasizing the importance of temperance and self-control. Temperance is one of the 4 cardinal virtues of Stoicism, referring to moderation and the ability to regulate your desires and actions. In the context of boundaries, temperance means knowing when to say no and managing your resources wisely to avoid overextending yourself. To begin setting boundaries, reflect on what is most important to you. Stoicism encourages you to live according to your values, and setting boundaries is a way to ensure that you are protecting your own well-being while maintaining virtuous relationships. Identify areas in your life where you feel overwhelmed or disrespected, and practice asserting your needs calmly and rationally. Stoicism also teaches the importance of justice, treating yourself and others fairly. Setting boundaries is not an act of selfishness, but of fairness to yourself. You deserve respect and care just as much as anyone else. When you set boundaries, you are honoring your own needs and ensuring that you have the emotional capacity to engage in relationships in a healthy way. Finally, remember that Stoicism encourages a focus on what is within your control. You cannot control how others will react to your boundaries, but you can control how you communicate them. By setting boundaries with firmness and clarity, you protect your well-being while allowing others the opportunity to respect your limits. If they do not, that is beyond your control, but your peace of mind comes from knowing you acted in alignment with your values. Chapter 9. Overachievement as a means of seeking validation. Overachievement is a common response to growing up without love or emotional validation. When children don't receive affection, praise, or acknowledgement, they often turn to external accomplishments to fill that void. Over time, these children may become overachievers, tying their sense of self-worth to their successes. By practicing emotional awareness and gradually opening up in small, manageable steps, you can begin to build deeper, more meaningful connections without being overwhelmed by fear. Chapter 11: Perfectionism and Fear of Failure. Perfectionism is another sign that you may not have received love as a child. When love and approval were conditional, based on performance or success, you may have internalized the belief that only by being perfect will you be worthy of love or acceptance. As an adult, this often manifests as a crippling fear of failure and a constant drive to meet impossible standards. Perfectionists hold themselves to unachievable ideals, believing that any mistake or imperfection reflects a fundamental flaw in their character. This can lead to anxiety, stress, and an inability to enjoy life's simple pleasures. The fear of failure can become so intense that you may avoid taking risks altogether, preventing yourself from growing or trying new things out of fear of not being good enough. Perfectionism also creates a cycle of dissatisfaction. Even when you achieve something significant, it may never feel like enough, as you immediately move on to the next challenge, convinced that you must continue to prove your worth. Stoicism teaches that perfectionism is an unrealistic and harmful mindset, as no human being is capable of perfection. Instead, the Stoics emphasized focusing on progress over perfection. The Stoic philosopher Seneca said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." This insight is particularly relevant for those who fear failure and perfectionism, as the fear of making mistakes is often worse than the mistakes themselves. To combat perfectionism, practice the Stoic principle of self-compassion. Understand that mistakes are part of being human and that failure is a necessary part of growth. Instead of striving for perfection, focus on doing your best and learning from your experiences. The Stoics believed that wisdom comes from acknowledging your limitations and embracing the process of self-improvement rather than obsessing over flawless execution. Another useful Stoic practice is negative visualization. Imagine the worst-case scenario. What would happen if you failed? By facing your fears head-on, you can reduce the anxiety that comes from uncertainty and imperfection. Stoicism teaches that by mentally preparing for challenges and failures, you can face them with resilience and composure when they occur. Finally, recognize that true worth comes from virtue, not from achievements or success. Focus on living according to your principles and values, rather than measuring your worth by external outcomes. By shifting your mindset from perfectionism to personal growth, you can free yourself from the fear of failure and find peace in the journey rather than the destination. Chapter 12: Codependency in Relationships. Codependency often develops in individuals who did not experience unconditional love as children. Without a secure emotional foundation, these individuals may grow up seeking validation and emotional support from others, to the point of becoming overly reliant on their relationships. Codependency is characterized by an excessive need to care for or be cared for by others, often at the expense of one's own well-being. In codependent relationships, individuals may feel responsible for their partner's emotions or needs, neglecting their own in the process. This creates an unhealthy dynamic where the codependent person's sense of self-worth is tied to their ability to please or take care of others. This reliance can lead to feelings of helplessness or desperation when the relationship is threatened or doesn't go as expected. Codependency can also lead to controlling behavior, where one person attempts to manage every aspect of the relationship to prevent emotional pain or abandonment. This dynamic not only harms the individual, but also creates imbalanced, unhealthy relationships. Stoicism teaches the importance of self-sufficiency and emotional independence. The Stoics believed that true happiness and fulfillment come from within, not from external sources like relationships or approval. To break free from codependency, practice Autarkia, the Stoic principle of relying on yourself for emotional stability and well-being. To begin cultivating emotional independence, focus on developing your own interests, values, and strengths outside of the relationship. Stoicism encourages you to build a life that is grounded in your own virtues, rather than being overly focused on others' needs or approval. By prioritizing self-growth and self-respect, you can create a healthier balance in relationships where both partners are emotionally autonomous. Another important Stoic teaching is the concept of interdependence, which recognizes that while human beings are social creatures, we should not become dependent on others for our happiness. Relationships should be built on mutual respect and support, not on excessive emotional reliance. Practice engaging in relationships with a mindset of shared growth, where both parties are responsible for their own emotions and well-being. By focusing on inner strength and personal growth, you can reduce your reliance on others for validation, leading to healthier, more balanced relationships where both partners are free to thrive as individuals. Chapter 13. Struggles with forgiveness, both of others and themselves. Individuals who were not loved or nurtured as children often struggle with forgiveness, both of others and of themselves. When you have experienced emotional neglect or harm, it can be difficult to let go of resentment or anger. You may hold on to past hurts, believing that forgiveness means condoning the harm that was done to you. Similarly, you may find it hard to forgive yourself for perceived mistakes or shortcomings, particularly if you grew up believing that you were unworthy or inadequate. This inability to forgive can create emotional burdens that weigh heavily on your mind and heart. Holding on to resentment or self-blame prevents you from healing and moving forward. It can also affect your relationships, as unresolved anger or guilt may lead to bitterness, defensiveness, or self-sabotage. Stoicism teaches that forgiveness is not about excusing harmful behavior, but about freeing yourself from the emotional burden of resentment. The Stoic philosopher Seneca said, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." Holding on to anger or grudges only harms you, not the person who wronged you. To practice forgiveness, start by recognizing that everyone, including yourself, is fallible. The Stoic concept of sympathia teaches that we are all interconnected and that people make mistakes out of ignorance or emotional pain. By cultivating compassion and understanding, you can learn to forgive others for their shortcomings without condoning their actions. Forgiving yourself is equally important. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of self-improvement and learning from your mistakes. Rather than holding yourself to an impossible standard of perfection, recognize that mistakes are a natural part of life. Amor fati, or the love of fate, teaches you to embrace all aspects of life, including your own imperfections and past failures. By accepting and learning from these experiences, you can forgive yourself and move forward with greater wisdom and resilience. Finally, remember that forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself. It allows you to release the emotional weight of the past and create space for healing and growth. By practicing forgiveness through Stoic principles, you can find inner peace and move forward with a lighter heart. In this video, we've explored 13 impactful signs that you may not have been loved as a child and how they affect your life today. From trust issues and low self-esteem to perfectionism and fear of intimacy, the effects of childhood emotional neglect are profound and far-reaching. However, with the help of Stoic philosophy, you can find practical and meaningful ways to address these challenges and begin the healing process. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what is within our control, our thoughts, actions, and attitudes, while accepting the things we cannot change, such as the past or the behavior of others. By cultivating virtues like wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice, you can build a life of resilience, self-respect, and emotional balance. Remember, healing is a journey, and Stoicism offers you tools to navigate it with clarity and strength. Embrace the Stoic mindset, and you will find that no matter the challenges of your past, you have the power to shape a fulfilling and meaningful life moving forward. Now, if any part of this message has been helpful to you, leave us your like and comment, helping the algorithm recommend it to someone who needs it at this time. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos. And if you look through the videos we've already uploaded, you're sure to find something to take with you. Have a good day.